It had been more challenging to remove than they had initially thought. The rusted object was a lot heavier than they thought it would be. The piece of metal had been stuck beneath the earth for 4 years, but he would have dug it up sooner if he had known what had been inside it this whole time. It was a lovely morning as Matthew and his family sat around the kitchen table. They enjoyed looking out into their yard. But that had changed for his wife. They all loved their Staten Island property and they were proud of their lush shrubs and well-kept flowers. But there was something that his wife wasn't happy about. As she sipped her coffee that morning, she looked out into the yard with a disgusted look. She asked her husband when he would do something about what she was looking at. He told her that he would look into it when he had time. She huffed. "So why didn't you do it yesterday instead of watching the game?" He gave a helpless shrug, and she made it clear that she wasn't happy with what she saw in their yard. They were a couple like any other who were faced with unwanted tasks. They had been working long and hard with the landscaping, so this seemed trivial compared to what they had already done. But considering everything had come together, Matthew knew that time was running out to complete the task. He knew that his wife would continue to nag him, but he didn't realize that Mother Nature would speed up the process. The lush foliage the family had been so proud of had attracted a visitor, a deer who had a hankering for such vegetation. It had returned to the same section of shrubbery over a couple of days, and it wasn't long before the family noticed the huge chunk missing from their beautiful shrubbery, but they had no idea what this would lead to. As much as Matthew tried to rectify the situation, he knew the only way he would fix the damage was to replace the entire section of the plantation. He had left it for a while, and his wife started calling him out. The damage seemed to worsen when winter came. The leaves had disappeared, and that was when they spotted a strange and rusted object. He waited for the warmer months to dig it up. When it was time for the brush to be cleared away, Matthew called Bob Foley from Touch the Earth Incorporated. He soon arrived with his backhoe to make the job easier. Bob had been cleaning the mess away when Matthew asked him about the metal lump. "I think it may be a power box," Bob said. The two men eyed the box, feeling wary. Neither of them wanted to get electrocuted. "I'm not sure if it is a power box," Matthew confessed. Just then, his wife joined them outside. She was beaming now that the damaged shrubbery was out of their yard. Bob decided to help them with the metal box and started clearing away the excess earth. He tried using the backhoe to pull it out, but it didn't budge. It was clear to them that the box wasn't a power box. Bob went in for round 2, and the motor revved with the effort. Everyone cheered when the box was finally pulled out from the earth. Matthew looked at his stunned wife, who lightly smacked him on the shoulder. "That was there for 4 years?" she asked, disbelieving. The box wasn't appealing when they looked at it closer. It looked worn down and beaten up by the elements. But when they spotted the number dial, they were more intrigued. They wondered about the contents. Were their precious jewels locked inside? Were they ready to see what was inside? Their minds raced with questions, but they were all eager to find the answers. For so many years, the box, which turned out to be a safe, was abandoned above ground in the overgrown backyard of the Emanuel family home. The safe was roughly 2 feet across and 1.5 feet in height, and the contents inside did not disappoint. One thing was for sure, this safe belonged to someone. Bob and Matthew couldn't help but wonder why had someone buried the safe in their yard. But when the box was finally opened, it produced more questions than answers. As the rusty old safe was pried open, both Matthew and Bob could not believe their eyes. This safe had incredible valuables inside, and even though water had damaged most of the contents, files and documents were kept safe in a plastic bag. And they knew that none of these things belonged to them. But what were they supposed to do? Although the items in the safe had survived, most of them were badly damaged. "Can we keep it?" their son asked, already listing the things he wanted to buy. "No," Matthew said. "It's not ours." They soon would uncover a mystery that had been surrounding their community for years, but they did not know that yet. The safe contained tons of stacks of $100 bills, each bundle about 4 inches thick. There was also a small transparent zip bag containing much more. Still, as he saw the contents in the safe, chills went down his spine. Admittedly, he knew that all this must belong to someone. But who? Matthew and Bob had stumbled across an absolute real-life treasure. The contents boggled their minds. But even though they had found an amazing once-in-a-lifetime find, they didn't know the true value of what they had found. Yet. Many of the dollar bills were wet and of no use. Still, the surprises surrounding this incredible discovery were far from over. Chunks of gold, jade earrings, jewels, and diamond rings were also hidden within the safe. All in all, the amount that was discovered in the safe was worth about $53,000 altogether. Though we were freaked out, Bob told Staten Island Live, "It's something you can't make up." But that wasn't all. There was one more thing that would cause this incredible find to make headlines. Inside the sealed plastic bag, they found important documents. One of the documents was a receipt and value for a precious diamond ring. But as they kept searching the safe, the ring was nowhere to be found. They had found so many valuables, but what was missing was the most important one. Had someone already opened the safe and only taken the ring? But why would they leave everything else behind? While searching through the documents, they also found a water-damaged owner's manual for an expensive watch. And that, too, was nowhere to be found. Matthew and Bob knew that this could not just be a coincidence. It was obvious that the most valuable items were not there. Someone had been in this safe, but who? As they searched through the safe in awe, they found something that would solve everything. Among the contents of the plastic bag, there was also a note. When Matthew saw the letter, he couldn't believe his eyes. Scribbled and handwritten, the note had an address on it, and he knew he had to get answers. Naturally, he immediately had to find out where this address was. Pulling out his phone, he was incredibly surprised to see that it was right in his own neighborhood. Little did he know that he was about to get the cops involved, and by doing so, he'd resolve something that had been a mystery for years. Nervously, he knocked on the door. An elderly woman opened it, but still, Matthew had no idea what he was walking into. Potential crime, maybe? Matthew went ahead and introduced himself, but instead of asking the woman if the contents of the safe were hers, he asked something else. "I have a strange question for you," he said. "Have you ever been robbed?" The elderly woman looked at him, puzzled. Then, she said something that set an investigation in motion. The elderly woman and her husband were robbed in 2011 by the so-called ninja burglar. The burglar broke into her home after Christmas Day when the couple was out of the house. But as soon as they returned home, they knew something was missing, their safe. Could this possibly be the missing link to the crime? The safe contained essential documents and, of course, incredible treasures that the elderly couple kept dear to their heart. They thought they would never see any of it again, but was stolen safe, the same one that was in Emmanuel's yard. Back in 2011, the neighborhood of Tot Hill was victim to the ruthless burglaries of the Ninja. He had gotten that nickname because of how stealthily he robbed houses and prowled the neighborhood as an unseen menace. For over 10 years, the thief had robbed over 200 homes across Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York. 160 of his targets had been right there in Tot Hill, Staten Island, and it said that he stole more than $4 million in cash and goods. But his end was near. The community was in turmoil, but then in 2015 they caught the ninja, and the residents could breathe easier. Still, this elderly couple never knew that their treasure might come back one day. The Emanuel family invited the elderly couple to their home to investigate the contents of the safe. Never would they have expected such a rusty box to bring so much joy. As soon as the woman saw the jewelry, she began crying and shaking. She was overcome with such emotion that she had no words. She immediately hugged Matthew as she still couldn't believe her prized possessions had been found. For so many years, she had lived with the trauma of losing her valuables and never imagined the day when they would return to her. So the Emanuels returned all of its contents to them, but still, one more thing was left to resolve the mystery, once and for all. Matthew knew that this had been a criminal investigation, so they all came to the agreement that the police should get involved. Moments later, the police knocked on their door. To everyone's surprise, the police officer who attended the call and house visit was the same cop who had investigated the burglaries so many years ago. Things were slowly starting to make sense. The police knew the story all too well, and more so, they knew the elderly couple too, and no one could believe how a poison ivy-covered electric cabinet would come to resolve so many mysteries. The police set to making sense of everything before them, but although they would connect the dots, not everything would be clear. There was one thing that did not make sense. The money had been recovered, and some of the jewelry too, but what about the diamond ring and the expensive watch? As the ninja bandit was interrogated regarding the whereabouts of these two pieces, he quickly became nervous. He knew that now he had to put more than himself in jeopardy. It turned out the ninja burglar was not working alone, and in his absence while he was in jail, this person was still terrorizing communities. Police now knew that the thief had an accomplice, and it did not take long for the ninja to tell them who it was. So this person was detained and taken to jail, and it all started with the Emanuel family renovating their backyard. What if you never really know what's hiding on your land? But the Emanuel family brought a ton of happiness to an elderly couple who thought that they had lost their precious valuables so many years ago. So a couple of people asked us, "Why did you return it?" Matthew's wife said, "It wasn't even a question. It wasn't ours." But still, the family could not have believed their incredible luck. So, to treasure the memory, they put a statue of an elephant for good luck right where the box was buried. "I guess the reward is karma," Matthew told CBS Good Karma.